So, what if you could just hit a reset button on an entire country? I'm not talking about a new law or, some minor policy change. I mean a brand new constitution. Well, that's the incredibly audacious goal of something called Project 2028. It's a political platform that's looking to rewrite the very foundation of the United States.
And let's be clear, this is not about making small adjustments. The whole thing starts with this quote right here, a declaration that the American system has, and I quote, failed. That's a huge claim, right? And it really sets the stage for some truly revolutionary ideas we're going to get into.
Okay, so what's actually in this thing? Here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at why they think everything's broken, their declaration of failure. Then we'll get into the radical plan itself. After that, we'll dive into the new American rights they're proposing, how they want to remake the government, and, of course, the big one, the $10 trillion budget that's supposed to pay for all of it.
All right, first up, the declaration of failure. Before you can really get your head around the solution they're offering, you've got to understand the problem they claim to be solving. So why do they think such a dramatic overhaul is even necessary?
So, according to the document, the diagnosis is pretty grim. They argue the government has been completely co-opted by big money, which has led to this extreme wealth gap. They say we're stuck in a two-party system that can't compromise on anything, and that the whole rule book, comes from this outdated agrarian America and just doesn't work anymore. The bottom line for them is that this core belief in competition over collaboration has just failed the country. Okay, so if that's their diagnosis of total system failure, what's the cure? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because the plan is, let's just say it's not your typical political campaign. See, at its core, Project 2028 isn't about electing a person. It's a fully fleshed out blueprint for a new government ready to go. And here's the twist. The platform is the candidate. You're not voting for a man or a woman. You're voting directly for this plan. And the strategy for getting this passed is, well, it's pretty wild. First, like we said, the platform is the candidate. Second, the campaign accepts zero, and I mean zero, financial contributions. The idea is for it to spread through social media. The call to action for voters is to literally write in, "bought for president" in the 2028 election. And if it wins, they see that as a direct mandate to instantly enact this entire new system. No debates, no compromises, just boom, a new government. All right, let's get into the substance. What new rights would citizens actually have under this new constitution? Well, Project 2028 proposes a whole new Bill of Rights. It has 26 articles, which is a pretty big expansion from the original 10 we have now. Okay, first on the list is universal health care. The platform's whole argument is that a single-payer system would actually lead to massive savings. And to make their point, they show this comparison. Look at the U.S. spending almost $15,000 per person, while countries like France and Japan are way, way lower. That's the core of their rationale. Another absolute cornerstone of these new rights is a universal basic income. We're talking $1,500 a month for every eligible citizen. So who actually gets this UBI? Well, it's for citizens over 30 who make under $250,000 a year. It's also for parents under 30 who have minor children. Now, this is important. It would replace a lot of current federal aid programs, things like SNAP and SSI, and it would also sunset the Social Security system over time. But they're very clear that all legacy Social Security benefits would be fully paid out. But the plan goes way beyond social programs. This is a complete economic overhaul. You can see the comparison here. Instead of varied minimum wages, you'd have a $25 an hour federal minimum wage. There would be a new 5% annual tax on any wealth over $100 million. And get this, they even propose capping an individual's total net worth at 2% of the country's GDP. Okay, so we've covered the new rights for citizens, but the project also completely redesigns the architecture of the federal government itself. We're talking big changes to all three branches. So, for starters, the House of Representatives becomes something called the People's Assembly. Now, each district still elects one voting representative, just like today, but they'd also elect 5 non-voting issue representatives, basically specialists in specific policy areas. And, as you can see, there would be term limits for both the Assembly and the Senate. And what about the executive branch? Well, the president's power gets seriously checked. The power to pardon anyone? It's gone.
completely abolished. And using military force gets strictly limited. It would require either an official declaration of war or very specific authorization from Congress. No more gray areas.
The judicial branch isn't left out either. The Supreme Court gets a major overhaul. Lifetime appointments? Those are gone. In fact, on day one, any justice who served for 20 years or more is immediately retired. And going forward, new justices would serve a single, non-renewable 20-year term. That's it.
Okay, so that brings us to the $10 trillion question, literally. For a plan this ambitious, how in the world do you pay for it? Well, Project 2028 actually includes a pretty detailed line item budget to try and answer that. And the budget is absolutely massive. In just the first year, they're projecting over $10 trillion in revenue and savings. You can see the biggest piece of the pie comes from those $3 trillion in healthcare savings they expect. The rest comes from new revenue, like a new value-added tax, or VAT, which is basically a consumption tax, plus the new corporate, individual, and wealth taxes. And get this, the budget is actually designed to create a surplus. It's not just about breaking even. And the plan is super specific about what happens to that extra cash. A full 80% of it would go straight to paying down the national debt. The other 20% is earmarked for immigration and border security. So when you take a step back, what Project 2028 really is a complete, top-to-bottom reimagining of the entire American social contract. Everything from your basic rights as a citizen to the structure of the government, all the way down to the federal budget. And it really leaves you with this one final provocative thought. What if an election wasn't about a person at all, but about an idea?